Hi everyone, thanks for watching. Let's have some fun tonight. You know, there comes a point in life where you will feel that you've been single for too long. Now, you may ask yourself, what is too long? Who defines too long? Well, believe me, the time will come and you will know. And it will happen in one of the most unexpected of places, in probably a situation you never even imagined. You see, before I tell you my story, I've been single for 4 years now, and the thought never bothered me. But I always imagined it would hit me maybe at a wedding, at a baby shower, or maybe even like a couple's dinner party, being the only one singled out. But no, if you know me, that would have been too normal. See, the thing is, this thought came to me one day in one of the most beloved of places here in Germany, a currywurst stand. To give you a little bit of background again, I've been single for 4 years and the thought never bothered me. I mean, I knew the reasons behind. I had my own little list, of things that I tell myself that you probably tell yourself as well. So things like, I like being single because I want to focus on my career, or even if you want to be with someone, you're like, I don't have time to go on dates. The right person will show up magically at my doorstep. Maybe it's that DHL guy that, has been hitting on me for the past month. Or, I'm happy being alone. I want to keep it that way. I enjoy my freedom. And maybe you even added my personal favorite. I'm single because I have high standards. And just like the phrase, straight men are great and Epstein killed himself, that turned out to be a huge load of bullcrap. And there's nothing easier than lying to yourself. And it wasn't until that day at that currywurst stand that I figured out I was full of shit. So one day, a friend from Venezuela decided to visit me, and it's her first time in Germany. And the first thing I tell her when she comes to visit is, "Hey, I don't speak German, so I'm gonna be like a tourist like you, but I've been here for a while, so I can show you around. But don't expect much from me, right?" And I mean, I did a German A1 course a long time ago, but it was really bad. I wouldn't trust myself. But again, she had no other option, right? So she ended up, of course, trusting me for this. And anyways, at some point, we're hungry, so I told her, "Hey, let's go to a currywurst stand, because that's a very German thing to do. So let's go for that." So we get to one of my favorite currywurst stand in Cologne, in Neumarkt. And this place is really nice. It has it's a stand, but it's a bigger stand. And it has like a little front, with the fries, the sausages, and to the left of the guy, because it's only like big enough for one person, there are a couple of chairs and a high table, so you can maybe sit there and wait. I mean, it's not appealing to stay there, but at least it's a place to sit, right? So, so I ordered the food in my very basic German, and that was fine. And then we sit down in those stools over there that I just mentioned, just to wait for the food. So the guy's making the food, everything's fine, and of course at some point he comes back with the food, right? So he gives us the currywurst and we're eating there, and then someone else came, so he was talking to that person. My friend and I were speaking Spanish, minding our own business now. And then I'm assuming the guy, out of boredom, then decides to try to speak to me in German. I'm assuming, right? Because I was the one that ordered, so he knows that he expected me to speak some German. So he's like, "Oh, where comes to?" And I'm like, "Oh, I know that. Okay, ich komme aus Venezuela." So he's asking where I'm from. I'm answering where I'm from. And he's like, "Oh, great." And then he's like, "Oh, where is she from?" And I'm like, "Oh, she's also from Venezuela." So the conversation was very basic at this point, so it was fine. And he was like, "Oh, okay. How many languages do you speak?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, we speak 3 languages." And then it was really fun. So, but then at some point, things started to get just a little bit harder. So he's like, "Oh, what do you do? Like, where do you work?" I'm like, "Okay, I work in DHL." And he's like, "Oh, delivering packages?" And I'm like, "Fuck no." And I'm like, "No, And then I was just thinking, how do I say this? So now I'm about to go mimicking for this guy to understand, for the currywurst guy to understand what I do. So I'm like, shit, okay. So I'm like, scheisse. And I'm just like, computer stuff. And the guy's like, what? And then I'm like, yeah, I'm an engineer. I think that's how you say it. And I'm like, he's like, oh, okay. And then, of course, at this point, you can see I'm making an effort to communicate with this guy because I'm already going to mimicking. So my friend, because she was like, dude, like she comes up to me to whisper, hey, dude, I thought you didn't speak German. And I'm like, dude, I don't. So I'm telling you, if my German teacher from that course that I took way back when, if she had seen that scene, she would have been so fucking proud of me. Oh my god, I was just like, yeah, my Deutsch is amazing. And so then the conversation starts to get a bit deeper. So the guy's like, where do you live? And I'm like, oh, okay. So that's escalated quickly. And I'm like, okay, I mean, there's no harm in telling him. It's not like I'm going to tell him where my house is. So I'm like, okay, I live in Bonn. And he's like, oh, okay, I live here in Cologne. I'm like, okay, great. And I thought that was the end of this conversation. But then he comes with this question. Oh my god. He goes like, hast du ein Mann? And I just laugh. And I think I even, maybe I blushed a bit. And my friend was like, what did he say? And I'm like, I didn't answer my friend. I was like, nein. I was like, I don't. So he's asking if I have a boyfriend. Now I can say, I don't. And he's like, okay. And then he takes out his phone. He puts it in front of me. And he's like, okay, like, what's your number? And my friend, her face was just golden. I mean, she was so confused. She was like, what? And I was like, okay, I mean, why not? So I'm putting my phone number, my real phone number on this guy's phone. And I give it back to him. And he's like, okay, I'm going to call you so you have my number. And I'm guessing also to check if it was the real one that I gave him, right? So he calls me. I save his number. He grabs my phone. He writes down his name. And he saves his contact on my phone. And I'm like, okay. My friend's face, oh my god, pour over. So, anyways, the guy says, hey, I can pick you up in Bonn and I can help you with your German. I'm like, yeah, let's do that. That sounds good. So we end up, my friend and I, after that, already we're almost done with what we were eating, right? So anyways, we leave and I say bye and he's like, yeah, I'll see you later. And what worries me the most is that, at this point, everything made sense to me. Everything had been fine. The conversation would be fine. There was nothing wrong with what just happened. He was nice. Why not? So my friend and I start walking. I think we had walked maybe a block or two, not talking about what happened. And she's like, dude, why did you give that guy your number? And I'm like, well, I didn't want to be rude and awkward. Why not? Her face was just like that Nazare meme, calculating. And, she was quiet for 10 seconds. And she's looking at me all this time, dead serious. And she was like, Valentina, you're a lesbian. And she's like, the guy wasn't even hot. What the fuck happened to your fucking standards? And that, my friends, is when I found out I had been single for way too long. And not only that, not only have I been single for too long, but I have low standards. I have very low standards. I would say, in fact, I have no standards at all. My standards are right there with my German, just basically non-existent, just enough to get it on with the currywurst guy. And after that epiphany and getting my sexuality back on track, I also realized that I mean, I went back to realizing that being single didn't bother me. I mean, it doesn't bother me, but I had to make an effort, right, to find someone and stop hoping or waiting for my future wife to magically show up at my door and find me. But no one, and I mean no one, is more concerned about my relationship status more than my lesbian friends. You know, I never really had like that many lesbian friends, or not like this huge group of lesbians. You know, and I mean not casual lesbians. And what I mean by that is like me. Like most of my friends are straight, but then you have these lesbians, and it's like they haven't seen a straight person or a guy in weeks. So Cologne gave me that. So now I have this amazing group of 400 lesbians. Of course, not all of them are close friends, but I mean it's a big group. Just you can get to know people. But that's say my crew of like cool people that I hang out with often, I would say are four, and they're super cool. And no one's more worried about my relationship status than those four girls. But they also happen to be the worst wingmen, or wing women in this case, in history. Like, don't you guys have like these friends that think that them being your wingman will change your life? Like, if they help you, you'll get all the girls at the bar in one day, or they're like, you'll get married tomorrow, we're gonna find you the right person right now. But in reality, their techniques are more likely to have you end up with like someone's hand stamped on your face because you harassed them, or like you spending the night buying drinks for someone who's like way out of your league. Well, my lesbian, my lesbian friends trying to help me has always ended poorly. But I do give them credit for giving me a good reputation in the community. Now, thanks to them, I'm known for being one of the coolest girls in that lesbian group of about 400 girls. Now, what I did not know was exactly how they had done it and the price that came with it. So, how had they built this reputation around me? Well, I thought it was just my personality, you know, being cool and fun, very chill as well. But the truth is, I only found out one night when these lesbian friends, these four close friends, and I went out for drinks. You know, here I was in Cologne with these four close lesbian friends, and they were giving me the usual interrogation. So it usually goes like this. Valentina, how are you doing with the girls? How many have you fucked tonight? And I'm like, okay, dude, chill the fuck out. So then we get more serious, right? So like, how are you doing? Who are you dating? Who are you seeing? Whatever. And I made the mistake of telling them about this one girl that I had found attractive in the group, but because of the whole Corona situation, I never saw again. And then we didn't keep in touch, so I only seen him this one time. And then one of the girls, by mere coincidence, said, hey, you know, I actually had dinner with that girl yesterday, and she remembered you. Like, I told her about you, she was like, yeah, like, you seem cool, like, we should hang out. And she's like, and I'm like, dude, really? My friend's like, yeah, you should text her. In fact, text her now, because she lives close by. And I'm like, and wait, you should know, like, I would have never done this. I think it was the effect of the fucking beer I was having, and you know, the whole lesbian crazy, let's trust these people for once kind of thought that got me to do this. I'm like, you know what? You're right. I'm gonna give a call to this girl and see what she's up to. Let's go find her. Let's go talk to her. So, I don't know why I did that, looking back. So I don't know why I did that, but anyways, I ended up doing it, and I sent a message to this girl, and I'm like, hey, we're here at this bar, do you want to join us? If not, we should meet some other time, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, maybe she won't answer, we're having a beer, it's fine. And to my surprise, she actually replies with like a 3-minute voice note, and I'm like, oh, that's nice. That's customized response, you know? So I'm like, dude, I'm like, guys, okay, she answered, give me a minute. And they're like, oh, fuck, yeah. So, these girls, I think were taking shots just to celebrate that I had the guts to talk to the girl thanks to them. So they're thinking this is all thanks to them, right? And anyway, so I put up the phone to my ear because we're at the bar, it's super noisy and annoying, and I'm listening to the girl. And I'm listening, and I'm listening, and I'm listening. And at one point, I swear to God, I must have like smiled and blushed because my friend was like, "Oh my God, you did it, you dog!" And I'm like, I just started laughing. And I continued to listen to the voice, and I continued to listen to the voice, and they're like, "Oh guys," my friends are like, "Oh dude, let's get her a drink. Is she coming? Is she not coming?" And I'm like, And I lost it. I started laughing like crazy. And I put the phone down. And I'm looking like straight into the eyes of my friend, the one that told me that she had dinner with this girl the night before. And I just stare at her. And I give her this look of, "What did you do?" So I see my friend and I, give her the look. And I say, "Hey, what exactly did you tell this girl?" And my friend's face was a bit confused, but she was kind of scared. And these people haven't seen me angry yet. So I wasn't angry, but it was just the seriousness, right? I'm always kind of silly, so they were just like, "Shit, she's serious." And my friend was like, she was scared. She was like, "Nothing." And then she stopped looking at me in the eyes. She was like, "Nothing. I just said that you were nice and cool, and that we should hang out sometime." And I'm like, And I ask again, "Are you sure?" And my friend is like, yes, that's all I said." And I said, "Is that all?" And this time my friend takes like a 5-second pause to think about it. And she's like, "Yeah, dude, that's all I said." And I'm like, I start laughing, and I'm like, "Really? Is that your final answer?" And I start laughing. And, I cannot believe I'm saying this on camera, but I was like, well, you know what this girl just told me? She just said, oh my God. She just said that you told her that I'm a drug dealer. And my friend at this point, she was so scared thinking that I'm pissed, but laughing at the same time. So she's thinking I lost it. And you all know by now, I have zero standards, meaning I have zero expectations whatsoever from anyone. And I told my friend, "Dude, what the fuck? Like, I just bought you weed twice. Doesn't make me a drug dealer." And she's like, "Well, dude, you get us stuff sometimes." And I'm like, dude, she sent the message in Spanish. Like, this girl speaks Spanish, so do I. So she sent the message in Spanish. And when she said that part of me being a drug dealer, she said it in English. She was quoting you. She was like, she said that you said that I'm a drug dealer. And my friend's face, she was just like, "I might have said that, but I didn't mean it that way." And I'm like, dude, that's fine. In fact, I'm gonna add that to that list of reasons that I mentioned of why I'm single. And this one's actually true. I can now put on my list, next to the high standards, my friends think I'm a drug dealer. And they go out of their way to make sure I get street cred. So I told my friend, it's hilarious that you think I'm a drug dealer, but can you please not say that? I'm actually trying to stay in this country. And since I moved to Germany, I've been really trying to be a model citizen. Like, I try to stay in line with the law. No more jaywalking for me. I follow the road rules. Look at the traffic light, it's red, that means you get to stay. So I've been making a real effort to do these things, and then you have now a group of 400 lesbians that think I'm a drug dealer. We can't do that, bro. So, anyways, that's what I told them. Thank God that stopped. And if you're an immigrant, you have probably struggled also to understand, whether you want to stay here or not, where you want to, move to another country, if you're going to stay in Germany. But either way, I made up my mind a little while ago, and I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to stay in this country for a few more years. So I'm going to start learning the language soon. And more recently, I started looking into the permanent residency. And being a blue card holder gives you some benefits. And one of them is that you can ask for a permanent residency with A1 level of German. So the other thing is that if you're an immigrant, you probably know that the law here is kind of weird. Like, they say they need proof, but they don't say they need a certificate. Or they say, we need this, but they're like, is it official? Is it certified? What exactly do you need? So the rules can be a bit weird. And so I go to the immigration office and I'm like, okay, I want to be a permanent resident. Here are the requirements you have. And there was one requirement missing. That was the A1 level of German. And they say they require proof, but they don't say what proof. And I heard for a few friends that you can just basically go there and they will tell you what exactly they mean by that. But it doesn't have to be a certificate. So, anyways, I go up to the immigration office and I give in my documents, and the lady's like, okay, like, where's the proof that you know A1 level of German? So the lady, I tell her, hey, but I think, like, what do you mean by proof? She says, yeah, do you have a paper or something that proves that you know A1 German? And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, fuck, I don't have that. So I was like, is it possible to bring a witness? And she's like, what the fuck? And I told her, hey, you see, the thing is, there is this currywurst guy in Cologne, and he thinks my German is amazing. Thank you all for listening. Good night.